Hi! Welcome to the video. Today's video is going to feature me ranking every Hive game mode as well as their variants from worst to best. But before we begin, let's discuss a few rules. 1. We will be excluding games such as Treasure Wars because while it was with us at one point, it isn't anymore, and so it's irrelevant for this list. LTMs follow under the same rules, such as the case of Ghost Invasion, we won't be counting that, and that also applies to specific variants such as Sky Royale or Sky Mega. 2. Every game and mode will be provided with a tier. A tier is basically just a grade that describes how good or bad something is. 3. If you completely hate my opinions, at least provide a good case for why it shouldn't be so rather than just getting mad. Thank you. With all that out of the way, let's begin. At the bottom of the list, at 26th place, awarded with a D tier, we have Ground Wars. Now anybody who knows me also knows that Ground Wars is just something I don't like very much, and that still holds true here, but objectively, I can understand there are a couple socially acceptable things about it. Firstly, the power-ups are a godsend in my opinion. This game would be F tier easy without the power-ups, and luckily there is no F tiers on this list at all, just Ground Wars happens to be the closest, but yes, the power-ups are nice. I also think that playing with a group of people that you know and you connect with can add a little bit of fun to the game, emphasis on little. But the list of good things end there. Egg spam is an atrocious nightmare at times, and the difference of 5 or 10 ping can make the world of difference more here than any other game before it. It's that bad sometimes. And lastly, the XP here is pathetic. You will never be rewarded of what you deserve in your high kill games. Unfortunately, it's the only way to get some decent pacing of XP here, but grinding this game is a nightmare. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Alas, Ground Wars, play it casually, don't grind it, because if you do, you might drive yourself insane. Personally, as a level 5, I'm already getting close to there. At 25th place, still well into the D tier, we have the Bridges solo variant. Now, the issues of this game have nothing to do with the gameplay itself, it's everything that comes before it. Firstly, queue times are 60 to 90, sometimes 120 seconds in length, which for some players is too long, so that's already half the solo basic gone. Furthermore, because it's skill-based, you'd think that maybe you could see a value or something that would be able to measure how good or bad you are. Yeah, no, Hive made sure to keep that hidden from you, and apparently it was to avoid toxic players? I'm sorry, but A, you already have toxic players in every other game, so it's inevitable, and B, you disable chat in this mode anyway, so we can't even be toxic to each other. What was the point? A lot of people did complain about the skill-based matchmaking, however that was never my primary issue with this game, it's just the setup of everything that's absolutely horrid. I wish there was more to say about this, but at least I can have fun with the bridge in general, which is why I'd put it above Ground Wars, but don't ever play solo. Duos is just so much better. At 24th, we have Just Build Solo Extended Version. It's a shame to put this down here because I thought that a solo building competition themed kind of game could be a lot more fun, but unfortunately the extended version of Solo just doesn't pull it off. You will never really need more than 7 or 8 minutes for most of your solo builds, because solo is designed to be quite easy and straightforward, so to have 2 or 3 minutes of your fingers up your ass, unfortunately doesn't scream a whole lot of fun for me. I also want to add that if you are a grinder in Just Build, please stay as far away from solo extended as you can, don't play it, please. You are getting a quarter of the XP you could in duos. Don't ever play solo extended. I made that mistake, okay? Don't be that person. Let's move on. At 23rd, our first C tier spot, we have the solo variant for survival games. Survival games is a very nothing kind of game in the objective sense, where it doesn't accomplish a lot right nor wrong. It's extremely neutral, meaning that any feelings you have towards this game will almost always be opinion and solely opinion. It just comes down to whether it's your cup of tea or not. For me personally, I find it a little bit too boring, but if you're into games like Vanilla Sky Wars and whatnot, I'm sure you will find tons of fun in this. In 22nd place, we have the solo variant for Just Build. The extended version dragged on for a little bit too long, and I do think that solo manages to do just right in terms of its length. It's just how much fun you're having here personally, and for me, it's not a whole lot. I think sometimes solos can be a bit of a fun experience if you're playing casually, but again, kind of relating back to that grinding rule, if you're here for the XP, stay clear of solos, duos is much better for you. And speaking of which, at 21st, we have the extended version of duos in Just Build to take its place. Honestly, I do prefer this just by a little bit. I think having a partner with you to make a more ambitious build, something further beyond than what you could have made in solos, makes for a slightly more fun kind of time. But the only issue I'd have here is it's a 10-minute round versus a 5, so XP comes a little bit slower. So again, if you're a grinder and you want that level 20, in a game that's already very slow, then you will play number 20, Just Build's Duos variation. What I like about duos is despite the crunch of 5 minutes, you are technically earning XP twice as fast in a theoretical sense. And again, you still have the element of playing with somebody to help you realize ideas that you otherwise wouldn't be able to pull off on your own. Which again, adds an extra layer of enjoyment in a game like this that otherwise sometimes needs that extra layer. That isn't to say that Just Build doesn't have its flaws, however. The voting system is bogus sometimes, and the way that people will either throw when on your team, or just build things like genitalia and whatnot, can be quite obnoxious at times. This game is death by 1,000 paper cuts, I think. I do believe that there's a little bit too much here that takes away from what could be a B or even A tier game, but hey, if you're into building and more casual games, I guess I could understand why you like Just Build, even with some of its flaws. Now we're in B tier with the first game at number 19 being the duos variation for survival games. Now for solos, I said that survival games was something I found to be mediocre and not inherently very fun. But the duos variation gives into more of a chaotic and more frantic kind of game, which to me makes it a lot more enjoyable. Anytime my girlfriend and I have a really good game of duos on survival games, it's a pleasant surprise. We go into this expecting it to be kind of a meh experience, maybe a little fun here and there, but when we end up doing really well and we end up having this great sense of coordination, the reward is not just winning the game or getting these high kills, but just appreciating the experience in itself. Because of its inconsistency, I can't put survival games duos beyond a place like 19th, but I can at least tell you I appreciate when the times are good and fun. At 18th, I gave it to Murder Mystery. Now, I know some of you might be a little bit stunned by this pick, but understand that it's in B tier, so I still like it, it's just not one of my favorites. Allow me to explain. Murderer is the most fun this game can get. Innocent can be fun so long as it's not too repetitive, and Sheriff is okay, I guess. I'm not crazy about it, not as much as I used to be. The old maps weren't great, so then Hive decided to release the last few sets of maps, and they've been phenomenal. Chroma, Pigment, Castletown, they're all great maps. I enjoy them thoroughly. Backrooms is overrated, I said what I said, but moving on. The only couple bad things I'd say about this game as a whole is that if you're Innocent like 20 games in a row, it becomes painful. To be completely honest, it becomes boring and mentally torturing because all you're doing is collecting coins. That's all you got to do, and it gets very repetitive after enough games. And furthermore, I want to add that the XP here is cruel. 600 levels. 600 levels to get like 2.35 million XP or something. Do you know how long that's gonna take you? I have like 1,100 games played and I'm not even level 38 yet. I think Murder Mystery is best enjoyed in bursts. I think after enough times it will become painful and boring, so you have to understand that there are limitations when it comes to a game like this, but you can have fun here if you play it proportionately. Let's move on. At 17th, I gave it to Sky Kids Duos. Now that might be a bit of a shock, but allow me to ask you guys a question. Does anybody here think that perhaps Sky Kids Duos is kind of outclassed by every other variant of Skywars? I think Skywars Kits is a better solo game as is, and honestly, if I wanted to play a duos game in Skywars, I would just play the normal mode. I wouldn't play Kits. I don't know, I don't think that this version does anything wrong per se, but I just think every other version of Skywars is better, and that might lead to my slight disconnect from this game. Still very enjoyable though, don't get me wrong. I would just rather play any of the other modes of Skywars. At 16th place, I gave it to Hide and Seek. Hide and seek is actually similar to survival games in the quality department, in the sense where, objectively, there's nothing wrong with it, and it doesn't do a whole lot amazing either, so your relationship with this game is a question of mostly personal taste. And my personal taste make it so I like this game. I don't love hide and seek, I don't love grinding it, but its easy XP makes it fun to come back to semi-frequently and have a chill, relaxing time here. The only gripes I'd have with hide and seek is that A, seekers don't get enough XP, and B, this game is relatively uneventful, where the only thing you're watching me do on screen right now is sit in the same spot looking in the same place while I wait for my taunt cooldown to end. In essence, it's a fun game if you're looking for something that's more calming and peaceful, but if you're into something more high octane, I could understand why hide and seek isn't your cup of tea. Personally, for me, I like it, but I don't love it. At number 15, I decided to go with Capture the Flag. Now, due to the fact I made a video quite recently about my thoughts concerning this game, I'll just give it to you short. I think everything about this game could be amazing, but things like the flag stalemating and the shitty teammates and the unpredictability of both is what honestly makes this game go from what could be a potential S tier to a B tier, a 9 to a 7 if you will. But besides that, there are good things about it. Upgrade shop is great, item shop is equally great. I do like the map design too, I like the gimmicks of every map. There are a lot of good things here, but again, because of those two primary issues, unfortunately, this game does take quite a backseat to its flaws. At 14th place, I decided to go with Parkour Worlds. Like Capture the Flag though, I have my thoughts more in depth in a recent video, so if you want to know my thoughts about this, please go watch that instead. It won't take too much of your time, but again, that's a choice of yours. If you're here for the short stuff, well, in essence, I think Parkour Worlds is a good idea, but it just didn't have enough at launch in order to make it a better game. It feels like it was a little bit rushed before it got released, and unfortunately, the lack of item shop and the lack of purpose concerning the star coins after getting 260 of the 400 does make the game feel a little bit incomplete, and you can only speedrun every map so many times. At number 13, I decided to go with Squads for Bed Wars. And that's not to say Squads is bad, but most people would likely agree that Trios is the better between the two. It's weird having 4 players instead of 3. I'm used to 3, you're probably used to 3. Squads, when it comes to Bed Wars, starts off pretty good, but then usually endgame will be a total and absolute mess. People are camping in mid, tons of fireballs and dragon breath balls, golden apples, everything like that. It's a very big chaotic mess, and not in a good way. Not in a way that makes you excited, it's in a way that can piss you off and turn you off from the game altogether. I don't want to compare Bed Wars with Treasure Wars because that shows a sign of bias, but when I look at the experiences in Treasure Wars as Squads versus Bed Wars, I think we can all mutually agree on which version's better, and it's definitely not Bed Wars. At 12th place, I decided Block Drop would be a fair call. It's very relaxing, and I think it makes for a great casual game. If somebody is looking for a game to get max level on to start off with, a Block Drop is great. You'll probably have it done in about 300 games, maybe 240 if you have Hive Plus and you're really good. But it's just a casual experience with a few different strategies to play, and I think it does hardly any wrong and serves as a great but unfortunately underrated casual game. In now the A tier, at 11th place, I gave it to Gravity. I did mention in my recent video that Gravity did give the cold shoulder to newer players, but once you were able to get past that, you would reach this level of satisfaction that no other game could offer you. There's this great feeling of playing Gravity when you finally get what you're doing, where you can admire the aesthetic around you and get this unbreakable flow of completion. Gravity is one of those games where the work really pays off. There's more to this game than just winning, and I wish Hive would make more of their games like that too. While it is Hive's hardest casual game, it's definitely one that should be appreciated a hell of a lot more. But if you're not willing to do it, I'll do it for you. At 10th place, I went with Skykit Solo. Earlier I had mentioned that duos, while still being good, it's just better to play this game as solo, and honestly, yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Not a whole lot changes except the flow and maybe the level of chaos that occurs here, but yeah, at the end of the day, Skykits is just meant to be solo, not so much duos. No disrespect to duos though, still good. Solo just better. Moving on. At 9th place, Skywars Squads takes the place. I like Squads quite a bit actually. I think in Skywars it translates better than it does in Bed Wars. but it is still the inferior mode of the 4 pertaining to the original game mode. I think it works with Skywars better because Skywars has always been more of a brute force kind of game, so as a result, more people means more carnage, and so it's just better as a whole. At number 8, I went with Block Party. Block Party manages to accomplish many things. I think it does basically everything right to a degree and doesn't have many weak spots, if any. The only thing I could say bad about it is that XP is a little too slow, but it's a minor inconvenience at most. Everything else about this game is great. I love its aesthetic, its music is great, the power-ups are fun, everything about it is just very strong. It's not perfect, it's not amazing, but it's definitely something that entertains, and when it comes to a casual game, that's all I need to ask for. Death Run takes 7th place. Everything about Death Run is very solid too, much like Block Party, but I think Death Run is just a touch bit better. While not being quite as pretty as Block Party, it manages to cater to all different types of skill levels because there's a place for everyone here. Advanced and intermediate players can utilize the leap in ways that allows them to cut corners, save time, whereas beginner players can use it to skip traps or having a hard time getting past. There's a bit of a welcome sign for everybody here, and that's one of the cornerstone features of what makes Death Run so amazing. XP is not handled the absolute greatest here because I actually had to take time out of my day to calculate what maps were best, but hey, besides that, every bit of time I put into this game was well worth reaching max level. I would definitely do it again if they do bump it up to 100 or add prestiges. Taking our first spot in S tier at 6th place overall, it goes to Bed Wars Duos. And I like this mode substantially more than I like squads. Perhaps it just flows better or feels more sensible to play, but yeah, I'm sorry, Bed Wars Squads just isn't that great of a mode by comparison, but at least Duos is pretty solid. However, of the Bed Wars catalog, it's not my favorite. Making the top 5, it goes to Skywars Duos, which is a great game mode. I have basically nothing but amazing things to say about this. It's fun, it's fast, it's chaotic, but not way too overboard like some games get it. It's just the right amount of thrill. I definitely don't mind playing Skywars Duos, but there are a couple modes I do like a little bit more. Still, as a whole, Skywars is basically an undefeatable game objectively, so I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with most of Skywars being up this high on the list. On to number 4. Making it to S+ tier being one of the best of the bests, we have the solo variant for Skywars. It's a case of preference here, to be honest with you. Objectively, there's no reason why solos or duos would be above each other, so honestly, you can formulate your own opinions. If you're more of a duos player, I get it. If you're more of a solos player, I equally get it. Honestly, both are amazing modes, but solos is just something I'm a little bit more into. I have slightly better experiences playing solo and turning into a killing machine. Maybe it's the fact that solos is so seamless while duos requires a little bit more brain power. I mean, it's nice to think from time to time, but sometimes you just want to get some of that edge off and destroy everybody in sight. Solo Bed Wars takes the bronze medal for me. I admit, again, it's nice to let loose in a game like Skywars, but on the other hand, having a semi-strategic game that can almost compete in its pacing and action is definitely worthy of a high place, and for that reason, I'd put Bed Wars Solo at number 3. There's just something so seamless about Solo that both duos and squads can't quite boast. Solo is just better overall in my opinion, and it's a bit of a controversial take, because I know a lot of people like rushing in duos and squads, but nah, solo is my mode. I enjoy this the most when I'm playing solo, and I'm sure there are at least a few others who agree with me. It's just a great game mode overall. Bed Wars in itself is definitely something that's grew on me, so it's nice to see that I feel this way about Bed Wars at such a high place on the list. At 2nd place, taking the silver medal, is Skywars Trios. It's probably as shocking to you that I put this here as it is to me, because up until I made this video, I had no idea I respected trios as much as I did, but having seen them take away trios from Bed Wars, I point at game modes like this and say, why? Who cares about the numbers? It's the most thrilling, it's the most fun. The thing about trios that makes it so good is that it gives into what Skywars is about. This seamless slaughterhouse where everybody wants to stab each other and everything like that, but everybody's enjoying stabbing at each other. Oh boy, I just sound like a killer now, don't I? But you understand what I mean. You understand what I mean when I say this is peak Skywars and that there's not a single game mode that deserves as high of a position as Skywars Trios. It's objectively the best, it's subjectively one of the best. What else is there to say? If process of elimination didn't tell you I was insane, then certainly seeing this did. Because my #1 favorite game as of July 31st, 2024 is the Bridge Duos. What a glow up. Keep in mind, I put the solos variant the second lowest on this list. So it's a shocker to me, to you, to everybody that this is #1. But there's something about the bridge I'm absolutely obsessed with. What's especially jarring to me is how the bridge managed to do something that no other game could. Typically, when I'd hit max level in a game on the Hive, I wouldn't play it as much. Maybe I would to help out a friend reach more XP, or I would play it for footage, but I would never really play it for entertainment all that much. Maybe once in a blue moon, but that was about it. Bridge has completely defied that. No. I probably spent like 50 games after hitting max on here, which doesn't sound like a lot, and it isn't. Not out of 1,800 plus games that I've already played, but for me, that's huge. And it's the only game that's ever made me come back to it, despite it having no purpose as far as progression goes. I just really like the bridge right now. I need help!